So, how has the online switch been to you as a student?
For me, personally, awful. I've never taken an online class, number one, because I learned best just in person in general. So it has been so bad. And on top of it being just online classes not being great, two, I have to do all of my work from home now. And I've always been a kind of person who needs to go to the library or needs to be in a space where there are other people working. So it's impossible.
Dang. Okay. Well, have you figured out techniques that help with getting your work done?
We have an office in my house that no one else uses, so I've kind of made that my workspace, which makes it a little bit less bad, but I still feel like all the time I'm just in my bed and I'm like, wow, the world is imploding and I have to write an essay on Charles Dickens. It feels so hard.
Dang. Okay. So, besides from those things, or it could even be including one of those things that you mentioned, what has been the biggest challenge that you currently face?
I think the biggest challenge is communicating with my older teachers. We use Zoom sometimes, and for example, my Spanish class, I'm taking a Spanish 101 class, and our professor is in her 70s. She has absolutely no idea how the computers work and doesn't respond to emails and uses Zoom, though, once a week for us to have our meeting. And we've had 4 Zoom meetings so far, and 3 of them, she could not get the audio to work. 3 of them. And then, so finally, most recently, she got the audio to work and just was not even really teaching because I think she just doesn't understand what to do. And then when we email her asking questions about assignments, she responds either 1 in very broken English because she's super old and only speaks Spanish, or 2 in straight Spanish, and then we have to Google Translate it because this is a Spanish 101 class. So I think that's my biggest challenge.
Yeah, for real. So you would say that's your toughest class currently?
Probably, yeah. I guess another challenge is just teachers in general giving more work because they think that this is a time where we're just chilling, and this is like my Spanish teacher literally has referred to this as a vacation on multiple occasions.
Wow.
And I'm like, I can't do more work right now. It's not, just because I'm sitting at home doesn't mean my brain is activated the same way it is at school.
Yeah, that's really true. I guess what's something positive that you do see about the situation, whether it be on a class-to-class basis or even overall?
Well, in my education class, which is my favorite class and the biggest part of my major since I'm the secondary ed minor or whatever, she has made this amazing opportunity. We just wrote a paper on strategies on how to switch to online learning for high school students, and so I have an internship, and I got to be connected with a couple of my students that I was working with before this whole shutdown thing happened. And now I get to work with them online and help them edit their papers and work through their senior thesis.
Wow.
And so that is really, I wasn't expecting to be able to work that one-on-one with the kids. That really wasn't my plan before. So now that I get to work such individually with the students who really care and are really sad that their senior year has kind of been destroyed, it's really cool.
Yeah. What? Okay, so those are the 3 questions. That was awesome, by the way. Camera is rolling. The first question that I have here is, how has the online switch affected you as a student?
Exotic. Oh my god. So, as a senior, it's affected us primarily, as a senior and a +1 student, it's affected me primarily that the teachers kind of disappear now, your mentors kind of disappear. One of the big things about the neuroscience program in the master's department is you have a mentor. And obviously, because labs from Weiss Hall are now online, the mentors, who your PIs, your principal investigators, they're responsible not only for you as a mentee, but they're also responsible for their entire lab and their research. So sometimes emails get lost, phone calls get missed, information just gets buried under 100 different emails that you can't really blame the individual for losing track or losing yourself and trying to keep track, because everything's just hectic because it's by email communication. There's no face-to-face office hours. If you miss the Zoom link, you can't get into the office hour call, all these different things. So just a lot to keep track of, I would want to say.
Yeah, that's definitely a struggle, especially with all that workload on your back too.
Oh my God, for sure.
The next question is, what is the biggest challenge that you currently face, whether that be in regards to being a student or just overall in the quarantine?
I think my biggest challenge overall is because I'm from New York City, it's always the constant question of, is my family okay? And I feel like one of the biggest things, especially for my parents who are very selfless people, if something, God forbid, was wrong with any one of my relatives or my parents, they probably would not even tell me. Because they know right now my biggest focus is focusing on graduating, which is why I'm still in Philly, so I could stay here and focus rather than being home and worried about the 100 different other variables. So I feel like that's my biggest fear right now, is having information being kept from me and me thinking everything's okay, and then I get hit with like a bus by the time I get back home. So we'll see.
Wow, that's like huge.
Yeah, just get like, okay.
Wow, okay. Well, to switch gears a little bit, now that there's so much negative stigma in the environment and there's a lot of uncertainty, what's something positive that you do see about this situation?
I honestly see a positive situation is a lot of people are, I guess, taking things that they thought they had for granted. Like, honestly, it treated me like, my parents are from third world countries, so it reminds me of like, wow, this is what they kind of had to grow up in. Even though they didn't have to worry about a virus, they didn't have half of the freedoms I had. Like, I got to go to college, go out to drink and hang out with my friends, you know, go partying. These are things that my parents never had. So I think it's really nice to sit back and reflect on time periods where, especially like your older parents who you think don't understand you, now you're kind of seeing maybe why they don't understand you. They never were given the opportunities you were. So it's a good like reflection time period, I think. And it's also great for you to analyze like what you have compared to what you won't have the next day. So I think it just teaches us to be like, I want to say like cautious and open-minded to what we have and what others do not. So it's definitely a learning experience right now.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I know during this time, like for a lot of people, not having control is a huge aspect in their lives. And now they're fully like experiencing that. They realize like what they prioritize and what like luxuries that they do have in their life. It's cool.
All these luxuries that we can't do anymore, but you know, like.
Yeah, exactly. And I only have one more question left for you, and that would be, if you were to give advice to someone who was currently going through a difficult time during this whole transition, what sort of techniques or strategies would you try and tell them?
Because this is one of the questions that I have for people, for myself. What? But so far, the way I'm coping, I want to say, like, I need to keep my mind running. Because I know, for instance, the moment I leave myself in the darkness or I stay by myself and I'm too quiet, I get trapped in my own head. So even though school right now is the most stressful aspect of many of our lives, I feel like that's a great way to cloud yourself and to use this period as a motivating factor. We have the time. It's not like, oh, I promised my friend I have to go hang out with him later. You have the time now to stay home, get your things together, get your studies together, read a book, play some songs, put on a candle, all these smart little, cute little luxuries that we could do that we never had in our day-to-day rapid lives of running to class, going to the gym, coming home, hanging out with people. We finally have some personal time to take some time for ourselves. So I say to utilize hobbies that you probably gave up on, maybe a video game here and there, things like that you just didn't have time to on a day-to-day, to bring that back and really keep your mind running compared to just sitting in it, you know.
Yeah. And besides from school, what techniques have you utilized yourself?
For me, I utilize in like mental health periods. So for example, like as a +1 student, there's a lot of, not only do you have to worry about your senior year classes, but your master courses as well. So it's like double the workload. So what I try to do, if I find myself working, I want to say 3 to 4 hours a day on something, I'll take like an hour, make sure one, you shower, and get something to eat, you know, treat yourself. And I also like to like put on a YouTube video, play some music, just keep like an hour for myself where I'm just like watching things and having a good time, or messaging people on my phone or taking Snapchats, things like that, just to keep yourself on a break mode. Because if you keep working consistently 12 to 14 hours a day, just back and forth, you're going to end up draining yourself out. You're going to end up sleeping into the next day. You're going to end up wasting half of a day. So for me, it's all about keeping that mental health break and enjoying something that you actually want to do for that time period.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really good advice.
Yeah,
All right, I'm going to end the video here. So we will go and get started. So the first question that I have here for you is, how has the online switch affected you as a student?
The biggest thing it's affected me with is probably time management, because I'm a very routine-based person, so I was kind of in a routine, having my routine every day of I have classes, and then I go to work, and I have classes again, getting everything done kind of helped me get everything done, and then I had to relearn that whole thing all over again. And it's weird because I personally don't have any scheduled Zoom classes, but I have a lot of meetings throughout the day. But I'm able to wake up whenever I want and then get to work. But so it's been weird having more freedom, because as someone who's so heavily routine based, it's as great as it is to have that freedom, I almost miss having the routine of every day, going somewhere too. Because also when you wake up and you go straight to your desk, which is 3 feet away from your bed, it doesn't feel as important as when you get up and you literally walk 10 minutes to another building. So I think the routine, relearning a whole routine in the middle of the semester is probably the hardest part.
Yeah, I feel definitely, for myself personally, the productivity level is so different being in a room versus at a building in school.
Yeah, it's hard to get stuff done in my room. I've been able to get stuff done, but it's a lot of things that don't take me that long typically, have taken me longer, because there's just so many more distractions, and it's just hard to sit down and focus and only focus on one thing at a time when you're when you're constantly spending the majority of your time in one place.
Yeah, I agree. So the second question I have here is, what is the biggest challenge that you currently face? And that could be in regards to being a student or even just in general with this whole pandemic.
I think the biggest challenge is remembering to just take care of myself. And that, for me, mostly, a lot of it's been, mental health, and just making sure I try to get outside a little bit every day, and trying to put extra work into, make sure I get my dog out, so that way I kind of have an excuse to go out. Because, I said, when you're in your room, almost what feels like 24/7, and especially, even though I'm living with my family, I don't get to see them throughout the day if I'm really busy with schoolwork and meetings and stuff. So trying to get as much interaction with people as I can, and then trying to just remember to take a break from homework and stuff just to take care of myself and relax has been the biggest challenge, because it's hard to distinguish the time when you're working from the time when you're not working if you're all in the same place the whole time, and it's just one and out the other. So that's probably the biggest challenge.
Yeah, that's definitely hard. I know I've experienced the same exact thing with feeling like you're in your room all the time. It's so hard. Ugh. Okay, so with all of this negative stigma that's currently in the air, all of the uncertainty, what's something positive that you can say about this whole situation?
I work still from home, which has been nice. So I work for the Haven Project, which is, as you know, my school's department for sexual violence education and things like that. So we had a little bit of hiccups in the beginning, but we've now transitioned to remotely working at home. So we have our team is still working. We've been doing, we've converted as many of our events to online versions as we can. And we've been trying to put out as much information as we can, because we realize a lot of the problems that we talk about don't stop when social isolation came about. If anything, a lot of them got worse. Things like domestic violence has spiked and things like that. So being seeing my team get in there and trying to keep working throughout this remotely has kind of been very uplifting, and it's been like a nice like thing to watch and see how like people are interacting and see how like the communities have interacted with us, because we've seen like our president has been retweeting a lot of our like messages and stuff like that, trying to get the word out there and stuff. And it's been nice just to, and then we know like that way looking forward, we can say like looking back to when the pandemic hit, we still did our part as best we could. So it's been kind of uplifting knowing that like we're still trying to make a difference as much as possible. Despite everything, we're not just going to give up on those people who need us.
True. And I guess on top of the actual like just staying busy, like a lot of people can't say that on top of them working or even just staying busy, having that one thing that they can focus their energy and time towards, you're actually making some sort of impact on something, which is probably very rewarding.
Yeah, it's been one of those things that like gives me some sort of sense of purpose, which is another like little motivation to just keep me going when I'm feeling like stressed out about stuff. Just a reminder that like the stuff I'm doing isn't just busy work; it's like actual productive work, and someone could seriously benefit from it. So it's a nice motivation to remember like the world doesn't stop when we all have to stay at home. The world continues, life goes on, and we're continuing to push through and find new ways to adapt, but continue to still interact with each other.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I like that. It's very, very deep of you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Okay, I have one last question for you here. So,
all right.
if you were to give advice to someone who was going through a difficult time during this transition, what sorts of things would you say to them, and what techniques would you try and recommend?
I would say know your resources. That's like my biggest advice. I know it's easy to feel very alone and almost like very disconnected from everything, and not having access to your normal like care that you have. So like know that your friends are around to talk, but also know that like a lot of like healthcare providers are doing like online online meetings. There's a lot of like counseling centers. Like I know my university is switching to online counseling for people who need it. There's just a lot of the professors that I've talked to have been more than willing to set up Zoom meetings with me one-on-one to work me through problems, answer a lot of my questions. So even though I'm not able to just go to office hours like I used to, or like set up meetings, knowing that I have the option to like virtually connect with people, and honestly, like it's almost one of like the silver linings in it is because of everything being at home, there's a lot more flexibility in the hours, so I've been able to have much later meetings than I normally would. You don't have to necessarily wait for someone to be in their office because they're in there 24/7, so it's just a matter of making sure they're not already in a meeting. So know your resources and just figure out, like, know that there are people there to help you, and just be willing to reach out and ask for help, because that's like the hardest part is once you ask for help, it's there for you, you got it, but you just got to ask for it.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I think the hardest first step for some people is going out and putting yourself out there and admitting that there's something that you need help with.
Yeah, I was that kid for like freshman year. You wouldn't catch me dead at any of my professor's office hours, like never. Now I'm stopping in just to say hi, to see how they're doing. Like it's like once I kind of broke that initial barrier and realized like they're really there to help me, it's been a lot easier to take advantage of, and it's been like it's really shown like an improvement on not only grades but my understanding of things, like going further, and then also just being able to like maintain relationships with professors and stuff. It's helped me get scholarships to the department and helped me like figure out things going forward beyond just getting a good grade on one assignment.
Yeah, that's huge. I utilized that a little bit more after my freshman year. Going in and like creating that personal relationship, not only does it help a little bit with grades, I've noticed that having that person that you can almost have as a mentor, and like I see it also as a way to like check in, like as another relationship, like a friend to have. But I think people often our age don't have that figure in their life that's a positive influence, unless you have like parents, of course. But yeah, professors I think are a great resource regardless.
I mean, I live 4.5 hours away from home. When things are business as usual, I'm 4.5 hours away from my family, so I don't get to see them. So my parents and my mentors, like the adults that I look up to, are my bosses and my professors, because those are the adults that are the ones looking over me, the ones that I'm reaching out to for help. Those are the ones checking in on me personally, because like my parents do the best they can, but at the same time they want me to live my life out there and be independent. So we only like really talk maybe once or twice a week. So that's great, but like it's those like interactions throughout the day, even if it's only for like seeing them 2 minutes in the hallway, just saying hi, like knowing that those people are there to look out for me and knowing that those people are there to look out for me when I need them to has made like a huge difference in being like confident out there just to like get things done and be able to like and know what like if I need help to get stuff done, I can get help and then I can get it done for sure.
True. It's good practice for the real world too.
Yeah.
Well, cool. That's all the questions I have for you. Do you have any questions for me?
How you been holding up?
Yeah, I'll turn off the camera. Okay, Amanda. How has the online switch been to you as a student?
To be honest, before we went online, I didn't think I would ever be someone that would be comfortable with it, but it's actually been really convenient because, one, I go from my bed to my desk, which maybe most students did when they had a dorm anyways, but I feel that Canvas is like a really good platform that like lays out everything for you, and I feel like I'm just a lot more organized forcibly, and it's also been beneficial. So I don't think that it's impacted me so much negatively. Maybe just like the exams portion, like calculus and orgo, have been like a struggle kind of for the exams. But other than that, I think it's benefited me to like really focus on school.
Cool. That's awesome. Next question is, what's the biggest challenge that you currently face, whether that be as a student or just in general?
The biggest challenge. I think that you would think as a student it would be the lack of being around everyone anymore, to feel like we would always be motivating each other to like stay up and study through the night.
Yeah.
Because we'd be physically in each other's presence, and that's no longer a thing. So that might be when, like, if as soon as the sun goes down, for example, if I don't have the motivation there, I'm not necessarily pushing myself. So I try to get as much done while the daylight's out. So that's probably the struggle when the weekends come and stuff. But in general, maybe also just like emotionally, I miss the library. I miss the sunsets and all like the resources that the library just gave me, like just free space to work. And yet now it's like you can't get away from anybody or like kind of have privacy. So working out has been like really hard to do in my small house. But
true. So with like having that access to some place where you knew you were going to be productive.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So what is something positive that you can find during all the negativity in society today?
I love, as much as I know it's not necessarily what everyone should be doing, which is like walking around, I have been loving seeing like families out front doing things. If my parents keep saying it feels more like the 70s now, like when they were kids, because everyone's like out and spending time with each other, which it seemed like we've been noticing for years that that's kind of gone away, and like less kids are playing outside and stuff. And so I feel like now they're seeing that more. So I've loved that. I've loved the time too to like actually spend with my family that I always felt like I didn't have anymore as like a factor of growing up. But like that's not really the case.
Yeah. So. Do you think without this that you would miss that?
I think probably, yeah, because I also had like vacations lined up, like England, Ireland, and Bermuda in June and July, and that's obviously not happening anymore either. So it's kind of like you get to see how we're all leaning on each other and like trying to make the best out of it. And the same thing with like friends too, how you don't get to see each other on a regular basis anymore out of convenience. So you get to see like who's checking in, like, you know, and it feels really like nice and uplifting that people are still doing that.
Yeah, awesome. I like that. So If you could give advice to someone who is currently going through a hard time during this whole quarantine, what would you say to them and why?
Well, first I would probably want to ask them how they feel. Like, I would want to say more besides just flat out give advice. I would want to know more about why they're struggling first. So if it's like lack of motivation or something, I would probably say like make lists. That doesn't work for everybody, but I think it works for most if like you somehow find like value in it and coming up with like a solid routine, because getting out of routine is the easiest way to like let things overwhelm you and like kind of slip up, I guess. So I'd say have a routine and definitely just stay connected as much as you can. Like, part of that routine should be making sure you contact like someone, whether it be a friend or a family member at some point, whether it's a couple times a week or every day, depending on, you know, who you are, what you need.
Cool. That's really good. That was the last question I had, but do you have any questions for me? It sounds like we're at a full-on interview right now.
I know, it's cool. Okay, what is this survey for again? Like,
sure. So it's more of an independent research assignment where I'm trying to connect because like during any global pandemic or something so large scale like this, what makes up the overall has to do with all the smaller things that add up to it. So by getting a better understanding of where more people who are in kind of the same bracket as like college student as myself, getting a better understanding of that helps me kind of frame the situation better.
okay, cool.
And yeah, and I was gonna upload it onto to YouTube as well. Like I have I've done 4 interviews so far. I have like 4 or 5 more. So I was gonna do question by question, sort of what I asked, and then do like a sequence of people throughout those questions.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
I think that,
Okay, so Kate, how has the online switch been to you as a student?
Are you looking for like words or
However you would answer that question.
I'd say annoying. It's not necessarily difficult. Like, it's not hard to participate in online classes, but it's just annoying too, because it's like not what I want to do, but also the internet's annoying most of the time and doesn't work well, or I can't hear on Zoom or see people. Not that I really care, but like it doesn't work as well as obviously being in like class does. So I'll go with annoying.
Okay. So what's the biggest challenge that you currently face?
Lack of motivation, because there's no, even though like, yes, my professor's looking at me going, this assignment's due next week, I'm laying in my bed on my pajamas. Like, I'm like, yeah, okay. Like, normally when I'm in class, like, I just feel like it's a different environment and you have a different sense of, I guess the term I would use is different sense of motivation. Like, you're sitting in class and I have like a planner, you know what I mean? And I like write it down and then I check it every day, and I'm here and I literally don't do anything.
Yeah, it's definitely been tough for me as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have another question here. While there are negative things...
School! Continue.
So while there are negative things about the situation, what's something positive you've experienced?
Positive. I guess just the fact that, like, we're not in school anymore. Like, it feels like summer already. Like, even though I'm doing work, I feel more relaxed because I don't have to go to class and sit in class for 2 hours. Like, my class, it's not 2 hours long. So the positive would be I feel a lot less stress, actually, because, like I said, even though it's annoying, none of this is any more difficult than it was beforehand. So I'm not, like, super stressed anymore, which is really nice.
Have you used
Normally
this?
I'm losing my mind.
Sorry, say that again?
I said normally I'm losing my mind.
So, Have you used this opportunity to try any new things or practice new habits?
I didn't try any new things. There's nothing really to do. I've just been kind of tinkering with old things that I kind of forgot about. Like, I learned new songs on the piano and my guitar and stuff, like, just because I have the time. So I'm like, oh, I like this song. Maybe I'll see if I can play it on the piano. And I obviously ride the horses and play with the dogs and stuff, but nothing new necessarily because, like, I can't go anywhere or do anything. Oh, I did try to make sushi. That's something new that I've never done before. We went to the grocery store and got, like, seaweed wrappers, like the wrapping paper and stuff, and, like, made sushi, and that was actually fun. We had never done that before.
Cool. So what would your advice be to someone who may be going through a difficult time during this whole scenario?
With the quarantine or, like, school-related? Like, online school stuff?
Let's say both.
Okay. For the quarantine, I'd say, I hear you. I'm losing my mind. I'm a very social person. Obviously, I have, like, mental health issues. We all know this. So that's really it's a lot more difficult to deal with now than it was beforehand. Because I got to go out and see people and I was kind of distracted, whereas now being home, you're not distracting yourself really. So I understand that feeling of stuck, kind of, you know what I mean? Like, unable to get out, unable to go anywhere. The best thing that I have suggested is literally just, if you have the car or can walk outside, like, just go sit outside, just get a change of scenery. Sit in your front of your house, back of the house, side of the house. Like, that's what I've been doing, kind of just doing different things like that. Zoom problems. God, I don't know how to help us with that. Honestly, we're all in it together. It's annoying. Maybe FaceTime. I FaceTimed a friend on my phone while we were in our same Zoom class together, and we were FaceTiming each other, talking to each other on our phones while the Zoom was up on our laptops. So, like, that was kind of fun because then I was still talking to her like I did when we were in class. So that was was nice. Like, that was different.
Yeah.
I guess.
What's been the best activity that you have done, like, that's made you the happiest?
An activity I've done that's made me happiest?
This is not part of the interview, by the way. Alright, well, I'm going to be asking you these questions here, and answer them to the best of your ability. So, here we go. So, Thylar. Can you imagine if I asked questions like that? Okay, so the first question here is, how has the online switch been to you as a student?
I hate it. That's not how I like to learn. Online is just really complicated with, like, I don't know how to say it, like so many things you gotta look at, like, things you can miss. It's complex. Sure. It's, like, hard to get used to in such a short span of time.
Yeah.
That's, other than that, I would not recommend it to anyone.
Right.
That's just how personally that's just how I personally am.
Yeah, that seems to be, like, the general consensus for a lot of people. They just, like, don't like taking online classes, and they've had no motivation recently, so it's been hard.
Yeah, it also has to do with, like, all this stuff that's going on, like, why put everything online, and why not just give everybody good grades and just get the semester, you know what I'm saying?
That would be pretty nice, yep. Yeah. So, what would you say the biggest challenge that you currently face is?
Just because you wake up, it feels like summer. You don't want to do class.
Yep.
You don't want to do work. There's no benefits to it. It's just, I mean, you're not around all the friends you had when you were at school, so it's not like you're doing homework with them. It's like all on you. So it kind of sucks.
Okay. So you feel like your social circle helped influence, like, your workday decisions?
Yeah. Well, because I was on the baseball team, we had like study halls every 3 days a week or whatever, and guys on the team would go down to the clubhouse and do schoolwork, whatnot together after practice or whatnot. So it's a lot different.
Yeah, for sure. Although there's a lot of negatives about the whole situation, what's something positive that you see in your day-to-day life?
I guess it just gives you something to do. You're still getting your education. Like, it's not stopping it or whatever. I feel like they should have given us more time. Like, more of a break, I'd say, to kind of get used to the online switch.
Right.
So, other than that, I think they're doing the best they can with what they were given, and there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah. So how have your teammates been reacting to the whole switch?
I mean, people are quitting school and everything. I'm not going to go back.
Wait, as in go back like next semester?
Yeah, I'm not going to go back next semester. I'm going to go to like a trade school up here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm going to go to like a welding school or something like that.
Do you think that's the best alternative, even though you have like so little time left?
Yeah.
Okay. What's your like reasoning? Do you just not like school?
Baseball hasn't been fun like it usually is, and I've never been one for school. The main reason I'm in college is for baseball, so it's just like it's kind of there.
Yeah.
So, and then all this hit, and it's just not helping anything. So.
Yeah. Damn.
It is what it is.
Yeah, it's the way she goes, I guess.
Yeah.
It's definitely got to be like, I don't want to say like upsetting, but like maybe bittersweet for you because you had like a lot banking on baseball. You were thinking about going, like having the possibility of like going to the league. So how do you feel about the whole situation around sports?
Definitely killed my mental state because I've been practicing every day since I was 5 years old, all day playing, trying to get better, and then all of it just screeches to a halt because of something that I can't control. And it's like, I don't even know what's going to happen this year with the drafts and all that. So, there still could be a possibility that I do go after summer baseball or whatever. But we'll have to see when that time comes.
Yeah, it's like this semester is supposed to be a pivotal point, right?
Yeah. This season was supposed to be like junior year is like where you get like really noticed.
Yeah.
And I had already had a bunch of people following me, so now everybody's kind of backed off because nobody knows how I am this year.
Right. Well, do you think by, like, I'm not trying to convince you to not drop out of college, but do you think about, like, what if you have a shot for next year, like, to actually showcase what you have? There's still a possibility.
If there was, like, I don't know how to structure it. But, like, yeah, for sure, if there was a possibility for, like, more showcasing to pro scouts, then I would definitely be down, more open to going back, or at least another school up near here, because distance was a big part for sure.
Yeah, all the way in Texas.
Texas.
Damn, Texas, boy.
Deep in the heart of Texas.
Yeah. So how would you know if there would be, like, a shot going in the future?
It's hard to say. There's not really a set in stone how it's gonna play out. It's just kind of like we hear like something like the NCAA just reestablished like eligibility this year or whatever, and like that comes with a lot of like scholarships being lost and moved around and all this stuff like financially, and it's just a big mess that it's kind of like being put together part by part.
Yeah. Damn.
So it's a shit show, to say a few words.
Yeah. I don't want to see you give it up on your dream, though. That's not the end goal, you know?
Yeah, I'm going to give it one final ride in the summer ball and see what happens.
Okay, cool. Alright, I'm stopping the camera. So, we'll start now. So basically the survey is to try and get a better understanding of how students have been adjusting to the online format, and specifically Zoom. So the first question is, how has the online switch been to you as a student?
I actually, at least personally, I haven't had any issues with it, just because my professors have been really accommodating with us. And like they've made it really clear that this is, for my professors, it's their first time using Zoom as well. So like we're on both sides are like kind of trying to work together to like figure out how to work it. So I think that's really helpful.
So it feels kind of like a team effort, like both being in kind of the unknown?
Yeah, so like it's like we both realize that like this is the first time that this has ever happened. Like, yeah.
Okay, cool. So the next question is, what's the biggest challenge that you currently face, whether that be in regards to being a student or just quarantine in general?
Honestly, I think I have one class that I don't really enjoy. So like now that classes are online, and she doesn't take attendance anyway, so now that classes are online, it's like easier for me to like talk myself into not going. Yeah, I know, it's horrible. But
I can definitely relate.
Yeah, especially since like it's an early morning class, so like I'm already like I don't want to get up. So like I think it's a lot easier to like skip out on class or like just like not pay attention in class, because like now like I could just like be on my phone, or like I could be on like paying attention to like something else on my computer. So it's like really distracting.
Yeah, I definitely see how that's hard. I have similar I guess circumstances where I've like skipped a class early in the morning, or just like have it on in the background, you know.
Yeah.
So the next question is, while there's all of this negativity in the air and a lot of uncertainty, what's something positive that you currently see about this whole situation?
Well, the first thing that came to mind is actually like I've been seeing images on social media how like the air pollution's getting a lot better in like LA specifically, and then like the water's getting clearer in Venice. So I think that is like that scientists were like saying how like that would have taken like years for us to fix. So at least like, oh, also like the koalas are like, they were just like released back into Australia. That made me so happy.
That's awesome.
Just the fact that at least there's like something good happening in this world. Like of course, like this pandemic, it's devastating, but like at least like it's not, at least like not everything's going wrong, you know?
Yeah, true. Mm-hmm. So with that whole answer, that seemed to be more focused on a broad scale, but what about personally? What's something that you see has been a positive in your personal life?
I think I've really taken for granted the freedom that we have with just like being able to see each other and like hang out with each other. And I'm like a criminal justice major, so in class we've talked a lot about relating our like quarantine and self-isolation circumstances to those in prison. Mm-hmm. It's not exactly the same, but you still get like the same feel because you're like cooped up in like a small space, and you don't have like that much interaction with others. So I think that's been really interesting. It's just like it really hits you that like you really take a lot of things for granted that you don't realize.
Sure, it can make you really appreciative, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. So the last question that I have here is, if someone who is currently going through this whole pandemic is having a really bad time adjusting and a bad time going through the switch, what would be some sort of advice, or what would you say to them in that circumstance?
I think the first thing that you should do is like try to pinpoint why you're having such a hard time adjusting. Like, is it schoolwork specifically? Like, do you have like a heavier course load? Because I know a couple of my friends, now that we made the shift to online, they have like more schoolwork. Or if it's something like personal, like mental health wise, like is it just like not being around people? Are you like not going outside enough? Once you pinpoint the issue, and usually it's like one specific thing, if you narrow that down, you can start to figure out ways around fixing it.
So try like isolate the thing that's actually bothering you, if you can figure that out, and then try and work on it from there.
It's also really helpful to just like talk to your friends or like your family members, because like sometimes if like you can't figure it out, maybe they know you better in like that aspect or something, or maybe they're like going through the same thing.
Yeah, I definitely have found that in myself, because I found like the control aspect is really big for me, and not being able to control like who I can see, where I can go, has been a big struggle. So I'm trying to work on that by like making a routine and stuff, but it's still a little difficult. Yeah, well, that's all the questions I have. I'll turn off the camera here. Okay, so the first question that I have is, how has the online switch been to you as a student?
What do you mean?
How has it affected you in your day-to-day activities as a college student?
It's definitely like the change of environment definitely affects your studying abilities, because you're so used to like the school, and like if you want to study, you go to the library, you go to the tech. But now it's like you're at home, and it's harder to really make that schedule, and you really have to force yourself to like get acclimated to it. It feels like high school.
Yeah, it's definitely tougher, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The second question is, what is the biggest challenge that you currently face, whether that be as a student or just overall during this pandemic?
My family's really loud, and there's like no sense of privacy except for at night. So my sleeping schedule is totally fucked up, because most of the work that I can do is at night, since that's when the house is quiet and I can really have the work to myself. And I already have like a terrible sleeping schedule, so it's not benefiting to that. And, you know, it's more beneficial if you get your work done during the day. So I would have to say it's like the whole home environment thing.
Yeah, that's very true. The next question is, while there's all of this negative stigma in the air and a lot of uncertainty, what is something positive that you do see about this situation, whether it be overall as a worldwide or like just personal in your day-to-day life?
I feel like I don't even know how to share this. We're communicating with people we wouldn't really communicate, and we're getting a lot closer to them, whether that be out of boredom or just out of pure necessity. So yeah, I guess it's like getting to know people on a deeper level than you probably would have.
Damn. cut the camera. Shit. Okay, so like getting to see a different level of depth in your relationships.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Interesting. Next question. This is actually the last question. So, if you were to be put in front of someone who was struggling with this whole transition, how have you in your day-to-day life tried to make your life better, and what sort of advice or techniques would you offer to this person in some sort of difficult scenario?
schedules are really important. Making sure that you're not just sitting around all day, because I did that the last 2 days and I ended up I understand people are feeling like so shitty. That's because they don't have a schedule for the last 2 days. I was like, okay, I'll give myself a break, and I did not like that at all. It's gonna sound cheesy, but do the things you've actually always wanted to do. Read the books you've always wanted to read. Watch the movies you always wanted to watch. You know, that ex from 2 years ago where you feel like you didn't have enough closure from them and you want to talk to them all of a sudden. Okay, maybe not in that way, but you're just like, hey, maybe it's a good time to get closure so we both don't hate each other. Yeah, just do the things you've actually, like, always wanted to do. And I guess, like, take this time to really be honest with yourself. And what are the points, like, do you actually like yourself? Do you know what I mean? Like, because if you can't spend time by yourself in a room and you end up, like, hating yourself, you have to think, like, what about myself do I not like in this situation? So, yeah, I guess just that.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
Okay,
so the first question that I have here is, how has the online switch been to you as a student?
Like, honestly, I haven't been doing well in school, and I haven't been, like I feel like I'm not even in school, if that makes sense, because I just kind of, like, fly by my assignments and, like, look stuff up, and, like, I just am not as focused as I would, like, with in-class activities or just being on campus. And, like, the tech center was huge for me because, like, that was my place where I would go focus and, like, study with school. But now, like, I don't have access to those resources, so it's kind of taking a toll on me. And everything just seems so much more complicated now.
Do you feel like it's almost like being home, it's sort of the vacation mentality and you're not in, like, that school mode?
Yeah, I think that's what it is, because I don't know. I was just so used to my routine at school, and now that I'm at home, I'm just, like, lazy.
Yeah.
And, like, I try to focus, but it's just, I don't know why it's so hard.
So what do you think the biggest challenge that you currently face as a student is?
Honestly, studying for exams, because number one, it's harder, like, with me, taking online exams, I just, like, prefer pen and paper, and, like, the whole proctoring thing, it just, like, kind of freaks me out, and that's always in the back of my head, and that's, like, a distraction when it comes to taking my exams, because I kind of just think, oh my gosh, what if they think I'm cheating, and, like, this, that, the other, and just, like, getting the motivation to study. I feel like it takes me twice as long to study for, like, a quiz or a test, because of all my distractions at home.
Well, aside from some of the bad things, what's something currently positive about the situation?
Well, I'm taking Intro to Risk right now, and that's a really hard class, at least for me. And, so I like how everything you can choose to make it pass or fail, because, like, that was going to take a toll on my GPA, and now that I have the option to do pass or fail, like, that's kind of like a relief for me. So
True.
That's, like, one good thing.
Okay, aside from that, like, how has your experience in the quarantine been positive?
I've been focusing on, like, health and fitness a lot more, which is nice to, like, I go on, like, walks and, like, I play soccer with, like, my dad, and it's just, like, I feel like I have more time to do things that, like, I normally wouldn't have when I'm at, like, school.
Cool. So you've taken up fitness, any other activities?
I ordered paint supplies, so I'm about to be the next Picasso. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So what would your, advice be to someone who's currently in the same situation as you and is having a difficult time in this whole predicament?
My advice would be, I feel like since everyone in the world is going through this right now, like, no one, like, we're all, like, in this together, and it's not, like, one certain area is affected. So I feel like if everyone just hangs in there and does the right steps of, like, social distancing and quarantining, that, like, this could be just so much faster if everyone just hangs in there and distracts himself and, like, is able to, like, look at the bigger picture rather than, like, day to day, like, oh, this sucks. Because it's better to, like, suffer now rather than to, like, suffer later, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That sounded like really deep, to be honest.
What can I say?
Okay, Zach. So, how has the online switch affected you as a college student?
It's kind of hard to transition. I mean, everybody was kind of caught by a surprise, but I mean, there's just a lot of time management you have to figure out. You have to kind of be on top of things, or you're just going to get left out behind. I mean, online's a big thing to do, to transition to just like that, but it's just hard in general. I don't know, man. I'm struggling.
Yeah, so with your current course load, do you think it's hard because of the volume of work or the content?
Definitely the amount of work that the professors give you. I mean, I really don't think not to call out any of the professors, but they really don't know how much work they're actually putting on people, considering that people take 5 to 6 classes each. But yeah, it's just the amount of work they give you in a certain time slot. But if you haven't sit down time management, then I mean, you're set. But a lot of people don't know the right skills to do that. So a lot of work can mean, bad grades or missing assignments and stuff like that.
Yeah, true. So would you say that that's your biggest challenge, or is there another challenge that is taken precedent over everything else?
I mean, for me personally, that's my biggest thing. Just the workload, the time management, and stuff like that. But I'm sure everybody else is different. I can't speak for everybody, but I would assume that there's 100 different other things people are worried about too. Yeah, true. So, you think school is the biggest challenge? What outside of school has posed a big challenge for you? Definitely the fires. It sucks staying inside, not seeing everybody, because I know all my buddies are home. You can't see them, which is kind of a struggle, especially not finishing out schooling with your other friends up there, which is kind of sad. But I mean, the big thing you got to do is just to stay positive during it. I mean, it's gonna get worse, but you got to be there to get it done. I guess, I don't know. Yeah, that's definitely true. I'm good at this. He's ready. He's ready to go into the real world. Let's go. I'm in front of the stadium, bro. Graduation speech. All right, next question here. So while there's all this negativity in the air, what's something that you've been using in your day-to-day life to stay positive? I actually started working out more. I slacked off during the school year, but now it seems like I have more time to work out, surprisingly, because I'm obviously everybody's at home. So that's one thing I do, which keeps me kind of sane, feeling good about myself. I mean, the other's my girlfriend, but that's a different story. I can cut that part, don't worry. No, you can keep it. Okay. But yeah, I think that's about it for me. But. Okay, so I have one last question, and that is, if you were to know someone who is currently going through a troublesome time during this whole pandemic, what advice would you give to them and why? Just to stay positive, like I said before. I mean, that's the main thing. I mean, if everybody's kind of scrambling and nobody's together, it's just gonna make it worse. So I think if we all come together, I mean, you can only go up from there. I mean, it's a very hard time. I don't know. I can't even imagine how people are dealing with it if their loved ones are affected with it too, which sucks. But yeah, just to stay positive through it all. That's how you're gonna get through it. Sure. And how would you recommend that people do come together? Anything, honestly. Talking, checking up on each other. I mean, FaceTimes, stuff like that. I mean, talking about what could have been, what you can do now, what your future's going to be like. Be excited about that, not be devastated about what's happening right now. Be excited for the future. True. Very wise words. Hey, that was really good. I don't know, man. I'm natural. I should go. I don't know. All right, that's the end of